Yeah, so we got a couple guys here to talk about some interesting stuff today. We're visited by Rick, if you want to say hello to everybody on TikTok.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
And then we have Joe here, if you want to say hi as well.
Hello.
So we also have False, obviously, on the boards, handling all of our IT. I was pretty excited about getting these guys in here today. So we've talked about it a little bit, but for anybody who does not know, CombatFC, new fight promotion, old and new name, some experience here. They have their first event coming up, so we were very happy to get them in here to talk a little bit about it. So you guys ready to get started?
Absolutely.
All right. So first of all, I think we have two really different roles here, right? Where Rick is sort of in the nitty gritty of the matchmaking and some of the stuff that me as a fight nerd gets a little more into, right? Yeah. And then we have Joe, which is apparently everybody's favorite guy. Right, you seem to be quite famous, not only in the fight game, but just via social media. Everybody seems to be showing you some love. So you have some of the experience with the promotions in the past, correct? Yeah. All right, and that was about how long ago?
We started in 2007. We did 11 events under the name World Championship Fighting. And then we had a trademark issue with it. Somebody actually trademarked the name World Fighting Championship, which is the same exact name. It's just they changed the words. And we and I called them and said, or I sent them a letter and said, hey, this, you gave this guy my name. Yeah. And they said, let's look into it. We'll get back to you. So they got back to me. They said, yeah, it's definitely your name. This, definitely you should be able to use it. It shouldn't be a problem. Use it. It shouldn't be a problem. I said, well, let me know when you guys straighten it out. They said, no, you have to bring the guy to court.
Oh, boy.
Why do I have to bring him to court? Yeah. I paid you $500 to make sure that this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we'll back you up if it goes to court. So I wound up calling the guy, kind of explaining the situation to him and saying, I'd love to be able to figure out how we could do this together. I said, I'd be willing to let you guys use the name, even though it's very similar to mine, if you guys would obviously be willing to let us do it. I said, we have the right to it, rather than tie us both up in court and stuff. And the guy said, why don't you just sue us?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes that's the answer. But you know what? I actually think it turned out to be a positive.
Yeah, I think it did.
Because I love the name CombatFC. Yep. So for me, it's easier to say, which is always great.
It's less of a mouthful.
Yeah, but also I just think it's clean. Like the original name was great, and I followed you guys a little bit back then. That was in my infancy stages of following MMA, but this name I think grabs a little better.
Yeah,
right?
We're looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's kind of a rebrand and relaunch. And, it's tough because we had to get the word back out to all the fighters. Rick and me know everybody. But the problem is the guys that we used to deal with 10 years ago don't fight anymore.
Yeah,
and
40 years old with kids.
Yeah, 40 years old. Everybody's got a couple kids. So we had to reintroduce ourselves to everybody. And one of the things that I'd say when I introduce myself to the kids, I'd say, find the oldest guy in your gym and ask them if they know us.
Exactly, and, right? Well, that's the cool thing about fighting is a lot of these guys, they never really leave, right? Yeah. There's whether it's they still have a connection at a gym somewhere or, they do some classes, some privates, one-on-one, stuff like that. So I'm sure you guys still had a few connections out there,
yeah,
right?
Thank God. Rick's tight with everybody, so it was, all the old time
Same with
guys.
the guys in the older guys.
Yeah.
There's so many gyms now that pop up that they didn't have fighters, 10, 12 years ago, but, in some of the gyms that used to have tons, they've gone the way of, they're jiu-jitsu only now, right? So, I don't know. It's been interesting.
Well, I think that's one of the coolest things is that, like, where you guys are, and where we're located, it's sort of like a hotbed, right? For whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA, or whether it's something like boxing that's very specialized. Like this is a great area for it. With all these gyms popping up, all these big name fighters that have come out of this area. So yeah, when I heard, I was like, oh, this couldn't be happening in a better place than here. Did any of that factor in? Like, are you guys looking at talent in the area, or are you trying to recruit just as much talent worldwide?
I mean, probably a little of both, right? I mean, it's, part of it why we did it in this area is because we live here, right? So
Yeah,
we're not
of
going
course,
to, like, New York City would be a cool place for an event, but we live 4 hours from there, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, I like where our venue is just north of the city because there's a lot of guys that, I mean, you throw a rock in Boston and you get hit an MMA gym.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many of them, you know, right in and around Boston. And a lot of the other events are, you know, an hour south or down in Rhode Island or up in New Hampshire, right, up in Maine.
Yep.
So I think we're centrally located for the guys that we want to have on our events. So that helps, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if I'm a fighter that lives in Boston, I'd rather fight 10 minutes north than, you know, 90 minutes north in Maine, right? So
Absolutely.
I think it definitely, you know, that's a positive for us, I think. And yeah, we are trying to, as you mentioned, you know, worldwide, we are trying to bring in some guys too, because with the Fight Pass deal that we have,
Yeah.
it's not just about selling seats in the venue, right? We have to make sure that people are going to watch it online as well.
Yeah.
And if you're a big fan of Rico DeShulo, you're going to just buy a ticket and go watch him fight.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
You're not going to watch it online. So we do need to bring in some guys from out of state. We initially had a couple guys from outside of the country, and it was going to be, you know, an amazing fight, but one of the guys ran into a visa issue that
I get pushed out till October.
Yeah, that can be trouble, especially during right now. That can be trouble. So you mentioned something. You mentioned Fight Pass, which I think is a huge part of what you guys are doing here, because obviously in Boston, you have ties, whether it's, you know, to Dana or to other guys who've just come out of this area. But to get on Fight Pass, I think, is huge, and it probably says a lot about what you guys were able to do under the previous banner. You know, just the visual aspect and the quality, you know, of the fights, and just the quality of the media and stuff there. So how did that come to be? How did you end up on Fight Pass? Is a big deal.
Yeah, we were trying to get a deal with them for years. Since 2006, it was when we first started talking to them about doing something, and it's progressed over the years. We were at one point talking to them about trying to be a minor league for them, and you know, that was back before they used to be other companies, like the IFL was a $150 million publicly traded company.
Yeah,
they called it the International Fight League, and there was Pride Fighting Championship in Japan that was selling out 70,000 seat arenas, and there was
for rigged fights.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, guys. I just gotta state that for the record.
Well, there were some tremendous fights. There were a few crazy ones.
There were a few rigged ones, but they did throw on some tremendous events. But a couple of those were iffy.
They were fun to watch. They did that freak show thing where they'd bring in the Aki Bonos and the world was 600 pounds, have them fight a 170-pound guy. Yeah. That was fun.
There were some great ones, for sure.
So we decided to get back into it. I called Dana and said, "Hey, we'd really like to get involved with this. I think we had a track record of putting on some really good fights. I think, not just saying it because he's sitting next to me, I think Rick's one of the best matchmakers in the country. He really matches very even fights, very, very competitive fights, and he gets some local talent, you know, some talent locally that he built into stars. Yeah. You know, we had John Jones fight for us. We had Rick Hahn fight for us, who's an Olympian, you know, fought in Bellator for years. You know, a whole bunch of guys. Rick could probably go through the list, but you've had a whole bunch of guys go on and fight in the UFC and all the bigger promotions. So we were doing that before it was kind of cool to do it. Yeah. And that's what everybody's trying to do now, and that's really what this Fight Pass deal is about. The UFC said to us, we want more subscriptions, more people to watch the product, right? So more people to buy the UFC Fight Pass, and it's a tremendous platform. They have, you know, tens of thousands of hours of fights that you've never seen before that were incredible. Oh, yeah. And plus all these up-and-coming shows like ours, there's a whole handful of them across the United States that they show the up-and-coming talent. And then they have, you know, all the old Pride fights, all the old IFL fights, all the old, you know, Strike Force and WFL and
Yep.
You know,
yeah,
WEC, and it's just
deep.
crazy.
Yeah.
And they're fights that of guys that you've seen forever that you know, but it was before they had an opportunity to fight for the UFC. So they really wanted to drive that subscription, right? We want people to subscribe to, and for UFC Fight Pass, you can go on UFCFightPass.com and subscribe. And it's well worth it. It's $10 a month. It's well worth the investment in it. I watch quite a few fights now that it's on. But the other thing they wanted us to do is they wanted us to build local talent or build talent regionally. Yeah. They're looking for us to build guys that go on to fight in the UFC. And obviously, like I said, we had John Jones and there's nobody better, in my opinion, as a fighter.
Agreed.
In the history of the world. I think John's legitimately one of the best fighters I've ever seen in any type of combat sport, and it was awesome to have him. And he's been nothing but a real good guy to us. He came back and did an appearance, and just been nothing but a gentleman to us. And it was awesome to have him. We wish we would have, we could have kept him for a few more fights.
Well, it would have been nice.
Yeah, well, what I think is perfect is like you said, that's exactly what they're looking for right now. And so this couldn't be happening at a better time. And as I was going through some of the fights and just taking a look, again, not to give him just a shout out because he's here, but there was a lot of talent that I saw up and down that fight card that I said, these guys are close. These guys are really close. And this is going to be a great platform for them to really put on a show where eyes will get to see their talent come alive, because we see it whether it's Dana White looking for a fight, whether it's Contender Series, which one of you guys fought on, or two of you guys.
Two of the guys that are on the next card have fought on.
Yeah, so two of you guys fought on. And then you have like the Tough Series, which I'm not sure if any of you guys fought on the Tough Series. I think De La Cruz was an alternate at one point for Tough 20, maybe. So for the Ultimate Fighter, so some guys were really, really close. And I met Rick, had an opportunity to sort of just talk a little shop with him when you guys came in, and obviously could tell he knew what he was doing. But when I saw the fights that were put on, I said, man, he's putting me in a tough position to pick some of these fights on fight day because they are so well matched. And I think they're matched in a way that you get to see the guys show off that talent, which is huge. So I did want to go into that a little bit, just in terms of, like, for me, the first one that I saw that really jumped out to me when I was looking at the fights was Sage Philippe in his fight with Sanad Armadi. Was it Armadi? I've heard it said both ways.
Pronounce it, so
yeah,
I'm gonna go with yours.
I've heard it said 2-3 different ways, but I'm sure he'll clear that up for us if it's not Armadi. And the first thing I thought of when I saw that fight was, like, first of all, these guys are massive welterweights in different ways.
Yeah,
where one of them in Sage has fought as high as 185.
He looks like he's
a
Dante
tank.
Hightower. You see him, like he's just
the man's an absolute tank.
Yeah,
but not to be confused with Sanad, who is long.
He's like 6'4".
Yeah, he is
big, tall
long,
guy.
length. He is massive. Even if he were to fight at 185, he would still be taller than most guys there. So you have two contrasting styles. What came into making that fight, that matchup?
So there's a few different things, right? I mean, one of the things that, before I get into that matchup specifically, one thing that I think we did years ago that made us different than a lot of the other shows is we tried to put together a lot of fights that people would look at and say, I don't know who's going to win this fucking fight.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a great fight. Like, regardless of what their records are, regardless of where they are in their career, we tried to match fights that either guy could win, right? Like, there was some amount, like, you see so many other shows, and I'm not going to call anyone out specifically, right? But you see so many shows that kind of take that boxing model where you've got a guy that's, 3-0, and he fights a guy that's, I don't know, very, very lopsided, right?
Yes, where you can just, you can take it to the bank who's going to win.
Yeah, and we see a lot of that, and I know, there's some other good fights that people are putting on too, so that's not to say that, every fight for us is going to be amazing and every fight for everybody else sucks, but one thing that we really tried to do is with our bigger fights, we try to match, fights that could go either way, and in one thing that's beautiful about the UFC's model is they've made it all right to lose.
Yeah.
Like, you see so many guys in the UFC that, they're not all undefeated fighters.
No.
You see guys that, like Billy Goff is a good example. He's a guy that is fighting, he's headlining a Contender Series. I believe he's like 7-2, I think is what his record was. And, so he took the tough road. He fought some tough guys. He lost a couple fights, but ultimately he's going to be headlining a Contender Series. So you don't necessarily have to fight easy opponents until you get your shot. You can be a guy that lost a couple times and you still get there. So I would say for Sanad and Sage, they're pretty early in their pro career. They both had great amateur careers. Sage keeps taking the toughest fights, right? Like he's got 2 losses, but the 2 guys he lost to are undefeated.
Yeah.
And the next fight that he's taking is with a 6'4" black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
Who's like, and there's, everybody says, oh, there's levels to this, but there's levels to jiu-jitsu, and like Sanad is a high level black belt that's actively competing.
Correct.
Internationally. Like he's phenomenal. Right. So, that was always what we tried to do is, find real fights like that. Right. And, so that's one that I have no idea how it's going to go, but regardless of which guy wins that fight or loses that fight, it's not going to kill either one of them, right? Like they can go out and it's not like this one loss is going to set them back so far. And we love guys that are willing to kind of take a risk and take those fights. And I don't know, as far as how we get those fights and other people don't. I mean, I don't know. We just ask people. Right? Like we keep offering fights like that, and if we offer them a tough fight and they turn it down, we offer them another tough fight, and then eventually they take one of them we offer, or they or
they weed themselves out.
Yeah,
a lot of guys just don't want to fight tough guys. I had a list of people that I really thought were the top guys in New England, and I really wanted to get them on the card, and then one kind of went through it and looked at their records, and I talked to Rick about it and said, what do you think? He said, there's guys that are going to be better fights. We can match guys that are better, and that's kind of what he's done. Any fight on our card, we used to do an intermission. I don't think we're going to do it with television this time. It kind of changes things up, but any fight after intermission at our last events when we used to do them, so the last 6 or 8 fights could be a main event on anybody's card.
Yeah,
and that was what Rick really did well, was making sure that everything, a 50-50 chance on this thing, and nobody's getting overmatched, and nobody's getting built up, and nobody's getting, he's just done a real good job with that stuff. And this fight card in particular is going to be the same type of way.
That's what it looks like. Oftentimes when I am reviewing a long time, has trained with some absolute killers.
Yeah, he's really got a ton of experience.
Yeah, knows the sport in and out. And then he's going up against really a guy who grew up in our social media generation, right? Where he's not new to the fight game by any means.
He's got like 12,000 Instagram followers posting avocados and shit.
Exactly, right?
You look at his Instagram page and you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you're like, he looks like he's just constantly having the best time of his life.
Yeah.
But he is, in comparison, new to the fight game. From Panama, I believe. Yep. He moved to the U.S. Yeah. Really,
I wouldn't say he's new to the fight game necessarily. I mean, I think he started fighting 7 years
ago.
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, he started fighting pretty early in his life, just in comparison, new to the fight game, right? But by no means a lack of skills. Moved to New York, maybe, to train.
Yeah, he's in Manhattan. He actually trains at Tiger Schulman.
Wow.
Which is a fantastic gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some monsters come out of there.
He actually had some, I can't remember if it was an Instagram story or if it was a post, but he trains a lot with Hurricane Shane Burgos. So there were training sessions with the two of them like this week, right? So it's, he does a real good job of, again, I was kind of poking fun with the avocado thing, but he posts a lot of, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Too. And there's another guy on the card that I'll talk about too, about his social media. But like we had talked about it here, previously, where like so much social media is so different now. It doesn't have to be like, it can be anything. Like
exactly.
Another guy on the card, he posts pictures of himself on the train every day drinking a coffee on his Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, I would say like Jacob's working out with an excellent gym.
Well, not to cut you off, but like that was the thing that I was getting at. So like you look at his social media, and it's a lot like with these kids.
Like a model.
Yeah, when you look at their social media, you're like, do they?
With his wife.
Yeah, like when do they have time to train? Do not by any means think that him posting about other stuff means that he isn't an absolute killer. Because this kid is although he's very young. He's very measured, great counter puncher. He'll wait for you to make mistakes, and then he'll pounce on them. Like he's a darn good fighter. So it's funny if you go look at his social media, you're like, this guy looks like the guy I would want to go on a vacation somewhere with him and my friends. Yeah. And then you find out like
interesting contrast with him and Jamie too.
Yes, like, and that's for me that was the craziest thing is he looks like he's a fighter in Jacob Guerrero that is pretty beyond his years when he's in there. But then you have a guy who really has trained hard since Jacob was likely a kid, right? So you have somebody who fights as though he's been fighting for 15 years, 20 years against a guy who has been. And it's interesting contrast.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, even if you just if you compare their social media, vastly different, obviously, but their personalities in general, right? Like you said, like Jacob looks like someone you'd want to go on vacation with, whereas like Jamie's the guy that if you're talking about, which one of your buddies, okay, you're getting in a fight in an alley with 7 guys, you can bring one guy, it's Jamie.
Oh, I'm bringing him.
Right? Like Jamie's he was like the toughest kid in high school. He was the, star athlete, right? Like, he's just a guy that looks tough, like he's got shin tattoos and shit, right? So he absolutely, looks like a guy who should be a professional
He's
fighter.
built like an 18-year-old kid. I mean, he's a freak.
Yeah.
He's
in fantastic shape.
Talk about training, the level of guys that he's training with. He was out there with Matt Brown getting him ready for his last fight.
Yeah.
You got to be good to get out, to be part of that camp. And
yeah, they don't quit over there.
no.
Yeah. Even just when he's doing the filming for the, he does the dynamic striking, right? So you see, on his Instagram every couple of days, it's like, okay, this is him hitting mitts with Henry Cejudo, right? So he's picking up little pieces of knowledge from him. And
Exactly.
even though he hasn't fought in a while.
No, he's remained to be a student of the sport. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
they had Tyson on there recently.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
They did it's at Dynamic Striking. They do instructionals, and they bring on everybody. They, the top guys in the world. They had Teddy Atlas on there. They Henry Cejudo. They get these really, really high level guys to come in and explain. They're part of that BJJ Fanatics,
Yes.
which is, they bring in the top guys in the world in jiu-jitsu, and Jamie is the face of the dynamic striking. So it's pretty cool to see the guys that he's getting the opportunity to rub elbows with and train with. And he travels around, and he's getting his training in by literally going to the best gyms in the country and working with the best guys. And then he does his work, and then he trains with if he's there for a week, he trains with them for a week, and then takes off. So that fight, I'm a big Jamie fan, and I think it's going to be one of the funner fights. I'm really excited
Absolutely.
about it.
yeah, it's going to be awesome. And that's one of those fights that when I look at it, regardless of what happens, it's going to be like, yeah, that's of course. Yeah, of course that was what was going to happen. Like,
regardless of the outcome,
regardless of who wins.
Exactly.
Jamie, look,
Exactly.
undefeated, sick, right? Jacob, duh. He's training with Tiger Schulman. He's been getting in rounds with
some of the
Shane
best,
Burgos. Like, regardless of who wins that fight, it's going to be like, should have seen that one coming, right? Like,
and back to what you said, a loss here does not change what you are. Like you said, that's the one thing that MMA has gotten correct that boxing didn't necessarily do a great job at, and specifically in the last 25, 30 years is it's okay to lose. You're going to take a lot of information from those losses and push them forward. A great example is a current, well, I guess not current UFC champion. He lost the belt on the scale, but Charles Oliveira, right?
lost the bunch in the UFC.
He is a great definition of how the sport treats losses and how you can rebound from it. He was a guy who was known for quitting when things got really tough. Not
anymore.
Yeah, and now he's walking through punches. He's really challenging guys. Gets dropped in every fight and keeps coming out the winner. So I think that is a great point in terms of what you can do in the sport even after a loss. And they've always said, right, in sports that you learn more from a loss than a win. So I've never quite understood that, why losses weighed so heavily in certain areas when you can obviously take a lot of information from that and bring it back.
You look back at Roberto Duran when he quit against Sugar Ray Leonard. They never let him live that down. The guy's legitimately probably the best lightweight that's ever lived.
Yeah,
and they got him. You know what they did with that deal was they had a rematch clause in there. They knew that he went back to Panama. He won the title the first time. And he went back to Panama, and they knew that he was a big drinker and big partier, and everybody. The Panama, he was the biggest thing that ever happened over there.
Yeah.
So they brought him out every night, fed him, and brought him to dinners, and all the stories about him, all the craziness down there. And then he had to come back and fight, and he looked like a completely different fighter when he came back. So it was, it wasn't unexpected that he was going to lose, and. when he said no mas, that was it. I mean, to this day, they still talk about
Yeah,
it.
they
No
don't.
mas. And
They'll never let it go. Yeah.
and he's legitimately one of the best fighters in the world ever. And it's just terrible that happened to him. And you get guys that that fight in the UFC that got 5 or 6 losses, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about Jacob, just like to stay on that, is he had mentioned something. I don't know if it was months back or years back, but he mentioned something about the opportunity of the United States and the opportunity that it would give them for just financially and just for publicity and taking yourself very seriously as a fighter in a smaller place in Panama. I don't know what their population is, but it isn't quite the eyes that you get here. So now he's made his move here. And is this his pro debut? Because I know he fought a lot amateur over there. Yep. So now we have a fighter who is going to be on your inaugural event, who is on Fight Pass, who is making his debut. That's tremendous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's tremendous.
Against another guy who's going to fight him exactly how he wants, right? Like
exactly.
Both of these guys, they're both kickboxers. They're both MMA. They're both MMA guys, right?
Yeah.
So
they can do everything.
They both have wrestling. They both have jiu-jitsu, but their primary game is kickboxing. Yeah. Like, and that's one thing that, similar to what I said earlier about how we get good fights because we keep asking people, right? And we ask people for good fights. It's kind of what Jacob did, right? Like, he came to this country. And, I watched one of his interviews recently, and he was talking about, as soon as he got here, he was talking to management companies, right? Saying, look, I'm going to be good I'm going to be a big thing. Yeah. This is what I deserve. I don't need to go fight some bum at some show that nobody's going to see. I'm a talented guy. I should be someone that you're willing to partner with. And eventually he asked enough people, and then he found a good management team.
Yeah, he found a great management team.
Yeah, and he found a great management team to work with him. He's got sponsors. I mean, how many guys, before their pro debut have the kind of social media following he has sponsors, has a management company?
Not many.
So yeah, that's just one of those things that he's been here. He hasn't had a fight in. I think COVID kind of screws everything up. Right?
Yeah,
but he's someone that he didn't just rush into what what would be a bad opportunity for him. Like he went out, he took his time, he found a good management company, he wanted to take a real fight. So yeah, it's again, you keep asking for what you want enough, eventually it happens.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's tremendous. So for him to make sure that he was ready first, and then to say, I don't want guys that are set up to make me look good and lose to me to pad my record. I want real tough fights. And then for him to find that with CombatFC for your first event, that's huge. And like, we love that type of story, specifically like just here in America, but in New England as well. Like, we love that idea that we get to watch somebody. I mean, we're watching it right now with the Celtics. Like, the Celtic pride is so high because we drafted those guys. Like, we saw them from the beginning. So it's cool where if we're from this area, we get to look at a guy and say, I saw his first fight, and I believe in him. And that's, if there's no other reason, that is a great reason for specifically somebody for this area to tune in, is we love that story where we get to watch you and we get to say, when you make it there, almost the way that you did with John Jones, right? So we had this guy and we watched him develop. And now people get the opportunity to see that, but they also get to see an absolute barn burner. Right. And yeah, I haven't.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I haven't said yet who I think is gonna put on the best fight, but this has to be.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
It's got to be up at the top, right?
If it's not the best fight on the card, it's because somebody got caught with something early.
Yeah. If it's not the
something crazy happened in the first round and somebody got put to sleep, like that's the only way that this
correct.
Is one of the best fights.
If this isn't the best fight on the card, it is because other people absolutely showed up with their best stuff, because this one is can't miss. Like, absolutely can't miss. We know we're going to get.
I'm hearing from all the fighters. Everybody keeps messaging me. Like, we're bringing it this fight. This is it. Everybody's really psyched about it. Yeah. And we are too, but it's like, when you hear from the fighter beforehand, weeks before, saying, I'm in this, man, 100%. I'm not messing around. I'm taking this opportunity to be on TV and really showcase what I have. And that's what makes the fun fights. These guys got to be willing to really go in and put it on the line, and it sounds like everybody is.
For sure. So just on to the last fight I'm going to mention to you, and then I'm going to ask you to pick one fight that I haven't picked that we should keep our eyes on. Yeah, just for now, just one. But the last one I wanted to ask you about was a local kid. Maybe shouldn't call him a kid. I'm aging myself. But Rico DeShulo.
Yep.
So he's taking on Gareth Santa Cruz. De La Cruz.
Yep.
Gareth De La Cruz, who he was the guy that I had mentioned was in tough as an alternate, didn't make it onto the show. So he's faced some high level competition. De La Cruz has, but he's going up against Rico DeShulo, a kid who's from our area and has a pretty big claim to fame. Himself being on the Contender Series, and really, I think when he was on the Contender Series, his loss there was to a guy who's still in the UFC.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, from that,
I think I want to say that guy's record's like 5-1 in the UFC. I think that's
Montez Jackson. Yeah. So the kid obviously has some serious skill. And those are two big names to secure. Just from a promotional standpoint, also a great styles matchup. What can you tell us about that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just keep saying it's gonna they're both at the point where they're like, I'm good enough to be in one of these bigger promotions. So anybody you line up locally, like I'll beat whoever you got. I want to string together a few wins and then, take a huge fight again, whether that's with the UFC or somebody else, right? So they're definitely, both of these guys are looking at it like, okay, 3 weeks from now I'm gonna beat this fucking guy, and then the one after that I'm gonna like they're looking. This isn't like for them it's not just we'll fight June 17th, we'll see what happens, we'll see how many more I've got. They're both looking at it like they're both planning on a win in a couple weeks,
exactly, and
then looking at, okay, after I get this win, then I'm going to go do this thing, and then I'm going to go do that thing. Like they've got the rest of the year lined up, right? So, it's going to be an excellent fight. I mean, both guys deserve to be in the main event. I mean, I think one guy's 8-3 and the other guy's 10-2.
Yeah, and great level of competition that they fought.
Yep.
Like you said, two guys that are ready to move into that catapult my career next step, and are just looking to go out and prove it. This fight going to be contested at 140.
Yeah. They decided they're both 135 pounders.
Yeah,
but getting on weight for guys that size kind of sucks.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially
if you could agree to it, what's the difference? You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's not a title fight. It's the only time that I would really worry about that is if it's a title fight. But if you get two guys that want to agree to fight at a different weight, it's they're still bringing the best. They don't have to cut weight. They might even be
save you that extra 5 pounds.
Yeah, they might even be better because of that.
And that was what my point was going to be. I think sometimes when we look at two guys who are fighting at a catch weight, it's because one of those guys is seriously draining themselves, and I don't think that's the case here. I think they fought at a catch weight in terms of they're both 135ers who are looking to move on to their next step, and they said, let's put on the best show possible and put our best foot forward possible, and that's going to be at 140 for this fight. I think we've seen it sometimes in the past. I mean, the fight that we saw, although this one was contested about the weight, but the show that Marvin Vittori and Paulo Acosta put on, which was ended up at 205, like those guys looked considerably better because they just agreed, like, hey, we're going to make sure we put on the best show for the fans. Yeah. We've seen it in a couple of fights where guys have just, we're seeing it happen right now where guys are, you have Michael Chandler, you have, Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, all of these guys saying, look, I want to fight a 155er, but let's do it at 170.
Yeah.
So we can put on the ultimate show for the fans because there's no title implication.
You're not leaving it in the sauna. You're not cutting all that weight and leaving all your strength in the sauna. I wonder whether there should be more weight divisions. At least 165, right? I mean, I've heard that
that's 1,000 times.
That's the one I think makes the most sense. But
the only problem though is you'd have someone like Colby Covington, who doesn't struggle to make 170 all that much, be like, I'm a 165 right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not just going to be the guys who don't want to cut down to 55. There's going to be, I mean, friggin' Usman said he could make 165 if he needed to.
Yeah.
Right. So then that's
that gets scary. I didn't
right.
think
That's
about
the,
it like
that's
that.
the part that sucks, right?
It does, but I think it's a balance on both ends,
guys
right?
are still going to cut weight,
Yeah.
so that they can be the biggest guy in the division if they.
But I think what you said is a good point. Like Colby Covington, I think is actually the reason why there should be a 165 because like
he's
I
smaller
just
than
think
Usman.
I just think like he's a small frame guy, and the guys who are cutting down to that weight, Colby's getting the worst end of that deal, and 155 is just too far to attain.
I don't know if it is though, right? Because he's talked
could.
about it. He's said that he weighs like in training in between fights. He says that he weighs less than Dustin Poirier.
Yeah. So it's
Right?
possible.
So, yeah.
But the question is, like, and I think Colby's doing the right thing by not killing himself to get there. But I just think he could
And
make the weight.
and if you're the best guy in the division outside of Usman,
Yeah.
like you're.
Yeah.
Do you really need to change divisions?
No, and
You
being the cardio king,
Right.
moving down to 155, who knows how much it'll drain him. So but I do think that like for this matchup, it's a good move to get them at 140 going into this fight for this matchup because they both get to see what the other has when they put their best foot forward. And I think that's the opportunity that they get here. And
they did agree to that like 10 weeks out. Right, so that was when we started talking about the fight. It was, hey, how about we do 140? Right, so that was something that it's not something that got changed, a couple days ago.
No,
because the fight's 3 weeks out and someone's fat. Like this was, before they really started their camp. It's, hey, we both normally fight at 135. We're not fighting for a title. Let's save ourselves the 5 pounds in the sauna. So.
Exactly, and get the opportunity to put on an even better show.
Yeah.
So. We mentioned 3 fights that were my personal favorites so far, and that could obviously change or could be swayed, right? So if you were going to give me one fight, just one this time, that could break into my top 3
anyway.
That's fine.
I'm gonna do 2 just
it's
because,
a great card,
right? So one that I have to mention is our co-main event.
All right.
Tim Karen is fighting Solomon Amadyar. Tim Karen was, I want to say he had 5 or 6 Bellator fights. He was also on Contender Series. He's been around a long time. One of the tougher guys in the area. He fights at 185 pounds, and he's fighting Solomon Amadyar, who's a guy from American Kickboxing Academy, and
great camp over there.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's done some training with Khabib. He's done some training with some of their other big names out of there.
Cormier's real heavy over there as well, just coming in and out, training wrestling. Yeah, great people.
And, he's someone that, he's a little bit, he's still in his 20s, right? So that's a check mark for Solomon. But he's also got a really good record. He's 7-2. And, there's a, video that we put out on our social media that his team put together. And I showed you earlier, he's got a really interesting story because early on in his pro career, he got kneed in the face and had a broken nose. And during the CT scan, they found a tumor on his jaw. He had a really rare jaw cancer. So, his nickname is Cutthroat, or the Cutthroat Assassin. It's because he's got a giant scar under his neck because they had to cut him open and remove this rare jaw cancer. So, based on what he said in his video, like he'd likely be dead if he didn't get his nose broken and get a CAT scan, right?
Right?
Wow. Yeah, because why would you scan? Why would you be? It's not like you go to the doctor and they give you a CT scan every year to check for jaw tumors,
exactly.
Right? So it's not something they would have caught. So yeah, he his jaw was wired shut for years, I guess, and he's taken some fights since then. So this isn't his first one back since then, but it's still he ran into some issues getting fights during COVID, like so many other guys, right? So. Big opportunity for him as well.
That's huge. Yeah, I mean, and one, like we love a comeback story or somebody who's able to beat the odds. And 2, this one's particularly interesting because it was actually fighting that saved his life.
Right.
And I think that is makes for an amazing story, and I'm sure what absolutely fuels him on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
So that he looks like a savage. I was watching
goodness.
video of him training, and he looks like a madman. And I know Tim's a beast, so you're going to get some fireworks out of that fight. I'm excited.
It's going to be a barn burner, and those and fights contested at that weight class. It's it could be lights out at any moment. Yeah, a head kick will put you out if one of those guys lands, right?
Yep. And both of those guys are phenomenal on the ground too. So
yes.
I would say, like Solomon was he posted a video I think today showing like striking into a clinch and getting takedowns and things like that, right? So he does a lot of stand up and he looks to take guys down and beat them up. Tim's a black belt in jiu-jitsu with really good wrestling, right? So so that's another one that it's it's like you got to pick your poison there.
I have no idea where that one's going to be contested.
Like if you take Tim down trying to ground and pound him, like he's I don't think he minds being on the ground.
No, he doesn't mind being on the ground. He's likely to potentially submit you. Then you have obviously on the other end when you're in the same gym of crossing the legs. I mean, obviously everybody's seen it with Khabib, like AKA. Those guys will maul you on the ground. So you have those two contrasting styles that always make for a great fight, or they could end up on the feet.
Yeah, they wind up standing. It'd be great.
Right? So that's just a prime example of exactly what I was talking about.
It's gonna be a fun one.
I cannot figure out where these fights are going to be contested. I just know that they're going to be great and they're going to be competitive.
Can't wait.
But now I am curious to know what your other one is, if you have a second one for me.
I'm actually going to tell you about an amateur fight.
All right.
So I was talking to one of the coaches very early on in the process of getting this card up and going, and he's like, "Hey, if you can find something for my guy, I've been trying to find him fights. Nobody wants to fight him. It'd be his first MMA fight ever." And I'm like, "All right, why doesn't anybody want to fight him?" And it's like, he's like a 3-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, and he's got, like he's competed in Aikido and things like that too, or no, not Aikido, it's Hapkido. I'm sorry, I'm screwing up my traditional martial arts here. So the striking,
it's a lot.
Yeah, sorry. So he's a guy that multiple time jiu-jitsu world champion. He won 3 world championships in jiu-jitsu. So in Massachusetts, you have to take an amateur fight before you fight pro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can just find a guy from out of state that you can pay a bunch of money to take the fight. Like you got to find somebody who wants to fight this guy for free.
Yeah.
Right. So that's usually tough.
Oh yeah.
And I happen to be talking to a guy named Randy Rowe. Randy the Savage Rowe. Yeah, he's been around forever. He actually, it's funny. Randy's a guy that he probably walks around. I guess maybe 185, maybe 200 pounds, somewhere in that range. Probably, I guess he's 5'9", 5'10". Yeah, he fought Tim Sylvia years ago.
Ooh.
So back when before the
what's Tim Sylvia? 300 pounds,
right? Exactly.
6'6".
Yeah, exactly. A monster.
It was that UFC heavyweight champ of the world.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. So so Randy fought Tim Sylvia at like a mass destruction event, I don't know, somewhere around 2000, right? So Randy's the guy that's like, the big goofball, yeah, whatever. So
yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, so Randy's a maniac. I love that guy. And I was talking with him. He was like, "Yeah, I got some guys that like to get on your show. His guys fought for us before. One of his guys actually fought John Jones, and it was at Parker Porter, who's in the UFC now.
Yep,
right.
UFC
so
heavyweight.
that's where Parker trained with Randy years ago, and I think he'll fight my guy. And I'm like, why wouldn't he fight your guy? And he's like, oh, my guy's 4-1. He's a Carlson Gracie purple belt. He's got some boxing experience. Like he's running people over as amateurs. Like he's gonna be a pro pretty soon. And it's like okay, so I'm amazed that we're able to find guys that are that skilled, right? Like you don't find too many. Again, he was from a real Gracie school, right? Like he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got good hands. He's just good everywhere. And like he's a guy that would be tough to match for a pro debut.
Oh yeah,
right. So so that he was like, yeah, we'll take that fight. And again, that's another one that I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, and
these are guys that they're going to be fighting as amateurs, and they're both guys that could go on to have
amazing,
really good careers. They're both looking at it like this isn't just like a hobby that we do a couple nights a week. Like Fabio's a jiu-jitsu instructor down in Framingham at I think it's Alliance Jiu-Jitsu in Framingham, and you know, and Lee McHugh is the opponent. I probably should have gave his name at
Oh,
some point.
yeah,
right?
well, yeah,
I'm realizing I
We'll
didn't
clip
do that.
that in,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Lee McHugh is the opponent, and you know, again, he's a guy that's been doing this a while. He's very active. I mean, one of his fights he took since we booked it, right? So we had a fight. You know, he had accepted this fight and was like, yeah, but I got this other one in a couple weeks first. So he's a guy that's staying really busy, and you know, I'm sure both of these guys are going to have, you know, good pro careers, but you know, we're going to see him fight as amateurs.
Yeah,
right?
you're going to see
crazy.
him at the very, very beginning.
See, and that,
Right.
and that's beautiful. And like again, that was what I saw across the board. Is like these are real guys, and these are real guys with a real opportunity across the board in fights that are all pick'ems. And so, like, hats off to you, and just both of you guys for putting this together. Because as a fight fan, from New England. It was a great mixture of sort of guys that were bred here and guys from all over the place, and they're all real guys, and also from some gyms that are pretty notable. You know, I think we got guys from AKA, we got guys from Jackson Wink, we got from Florian's gym, right?
Delagratti's,
Yep.
that song.
Yeah, so huge gyms, huge real guys, and just great competition. So
And you're going to see that as we move forward, you know, going on. We have a show in October, we have a show in February, and then we're going to sit down with UFC Fight Pass and figure out what they need for dates for next year, and then kind of fill in those dates. We need to schedule, you know, we obviously need to coordinate with the boxing commission to make sure it's a night that they can do, and we need to coordinate with the venue to make sure it's a date that they have open, and then it also has to be a date that the UFC needs content. But you'll see guys come in after we've done this event, after it goes off on TV, that'll want to fight for us, because now we're not just a name. We're not just, hey, we're thinking about doing a fight. You know, we had a couple stagger steps. You know, we had a fight booked in June, the year that they shut down for COVID. In March, they said, this is it. We're shutting everything down. So we had told everybody we were doing the fight, and then next thing you know, you couldn't do the fight. And I had threatened to do it a couple of times. I would call Rick, and I'd be like, we're doing a fight. He'd say, you serious? And I'd say, yeah, we're definitely doing it. And then something would happen, and wouldn't, you know, we wouldn't do it. And, so now that everybody knows that we're back and they see it, I think it's going to be different. And then even from the production side, you know, the TV production side, I have a real good friend. His name's Dean Toole, and Dean is partners with Roy Jones Jr. and Roy Jones Jr. Boxing. He's partners with Gamebred Masvidal, Jorge Masvidal, and Gamebred Fighting Championship. He's partners with Anthony Showtime Pettis and the Showtime Fighting Championship. And then he has two organizations of his own. So I think 4 of them are on Fight Pass. And the guy's got a ton of experience. He's probably one of the best-kept secrets outside of the UFC as far as talent. He's unbelievable matchmaker, matches all those cards. He's as tied in this community as anybody, and nobody, you know, they don't sing enough praises for him. But he's gone out and helped us with this entire thing. He's brought in all his people, you know, from as far as television and everybody that he had. He's let us use and piggyback off his experience. And all of those shows are such high end. They do such a good job on TV that it's got a real good feel to it. It's not like a Mickey Mouse show, you know, where the first one, if we were trying to do it on our own and just bringing people in and trying to put teams together, it would be very difficult. These guys have already worked together. They've already done, you know, hundreds and hundreds of shows. Dean's got a show he does down in Florida, in Pensacola. It's called Island Fights, and he sold 67 tables before they went on sale. I mean, they have a following down there. We did tables this time. It's the first time we've ever done it. And the idea is, you know, at some point we'll have enough tables sold where people will actually be fighting to get them. And that's what he says that happens down in Florida. He says the first show you might sell 20 tables. The second show you might sell 30 tables. The fourth show you'll have 40 of them. But, you know, as a promoter going in and knowing you have those tickets sold already, takes an awful lot of the pressure off you, because it's, you know.
And then all of a sudden you can start getting better fights and more fights. And
we can start planning things a little bit different. Where this one, you know, we're calling guys up and trying to explain to the young guys who we are, and they're interested. You know, you can tell that they want to do it, but they don't, you know, they don't know enough about us. You know.
Yeah. You know, but look, here's the thing.
I think a lot of the guys too are kind of they've got their blinders on.
And
that's the
tough part. Yeah, that's the tough part. Is you get used to fighting guys that don't have winning records, and you go in and you fight with a guy that's training in a gym that he's getting different looks against monsters, and he can go in there and hang on his own. When you get there and you don't have that experience, it's painfully obvious, and it's happened over and over again. And we wish everybody luck, but it's different, It's a whole different level at that thing. As Rick talked about, there being levels to this thing.
Correct. Yeah, and you don't want your big fight to be when you find out that there's levels to this.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want that to be when there's the most eyes, viewed as, you're like, I haven't fought a guy that's, it's a real guy yet. And now when I've gotten my moment because I've picked my fights very, very carefully, now I have my big moment and I realize, there's levels. There's levels in there. And I think that's my message to everybody out there, every fighter out there would be like, get in while it's hot. Like if right now, from what I can see from this first event and this first fight card, you're putting on great fights. So you may not have heard the name before or whatever it is, but get in while it's hot, right? Like get in while you can, because after this event, from what I see, there's going to be fighters lining up and saying, "Hey, what I got to do to get on the next card?"
It's already happening. Just from you start putting posters out. You start, the website got launched. The UFC announced our partnership. Next thing I know, on social media, I see a huge uptick in people, following us and fighters, reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, we'd love to fight. We'd love to get involved in this. When's the next show? How do we get involved?" And I want the fighters to come to the event. I want the fans to come to the event, but I want the fighters that have never seen us before, that don't remember when we did World Championship fighting, to come out and actually check an event out and say, okay, this is where I want to fight. We're 13 miles outside the city of Boston. It's you drive off the highway, it's at the bottom of the exit, you take a left, you drive down, it's all free parking, it's a 4,000 seat venue. It's got this really cool vibe to it with everything's really on top of itself.
And what's the name of the venue?
It's called the Shriners Auditorium. It's really it's known for the circus and the rodeo.
Oh yeah.
It's
and our card shows.
Yeah, and our card shows and
the
gun show, the roller derby. Yeah.
Yep.
So it really worked out to be a perfect place for us because there's no place outside the city. If downtown Boston is, you pay $45 to park to go see a show. And it's a venue that's 1,200 seats. For us, it just doesn't make any business sense. We can't bring in the top level talent because there's just not enough money in a deal like that. But when we do a show in a bigger venue, it frees up some cash, and then we can really go out and look for these top prospects and take care of them. And I love the venue. I love the people over there. They're great to work with. They're fun. I read an article one time when we did our first show. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Shriners, but it's an organization of all typically older men. They wear the fez hats, if you've ever seen it. So the article said, this is the first fight at the Shriners, and first WCF, and they said the fights were unbelievable. But even if they hadn't been unbelievable, it would have been worth the price of admission just to see all the old Shriners. When all the guys walked in, they were horrified. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what to expect from the crowd. And if you listen and you've never been to a fight and you think it's going to be something that's not welcoming for kids, or you've never been and you just don't know what to expect, it's a very well-behaved crowd, very knowledgeable crowd. I had a woman yesterday said she wants to bring her 7-year-old son that's in karate. I said he'll love it.
Yeah,
it'll be a blast for him.
Absolutely.
There's no problems at our events. I talked to the chief of police one time. We were talking about doing a showdown in Mansfield. There was a Holiday Inn down there, and the chief of police said, I don't know if you remember, Mansfield's the town that they have. I don't know what they call it now. It used to be called Greatwoods. It was a theater. Maybe it's Comcast Center or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But he said he has more problems at Cyndi Lauper concerts than he has at the fights. That was the way he phrased it to me.
Yeah, extremely, extremely well-behaved crowds. Like they just show up to obviously show respect to the sport and to watch a great fight. Yeah. And like I said, they're knowledgeable. The environment at those is absolutely electric.
It is. I was going to say electric.
Yeah, you can feel it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask one of you guys to cut a quick promo to TikTok and let them know where they can go ahead and view the fight, or where they can purchase tickets, or just how the heck they would get their hands on seeing this fight.
To get tickets, you go to CombatFC.tv. I'm not 100% sure what our TikTok is. What was it? CombatFC.tv?
Same thing as your website. Yep.
Okay,
I
cool.
created that last night for you
Okay,
guys.
awesome. I'll double check on that one. So it's CombatFC.tv
Yes, sir.
On TikTok. And I'm not sure what it is on Instagram. That's something I should know.
Yeah. So
That's all right. I mean, we can jump in. We can add that portion right for Instagram. So. What do the tickets start at and tables start at?
Tickets start at $55 for general admission. They go to $65 for reserved stadium seats, which are great seats. We have tables on the floor. They start at $1,250 for 10 seats. Those are the front row tables, and then the ones behind it are $1,000, and they go 10 seats for that too. There's also $250 cage side seats, which are unbelievable. You want to be right next to the action.
They're actually inside the barricade.
Those are amazing.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the way to go if you have the money. Behind that, the second row is $150, and then $100 for the first 3 rows, which I think we're almost sold out of. If you're hearing this, now's the time to jump on and get the best tickets.
And for somebody outside of maybe New England who can't get to the event, what else do we got?
Yeah, UFC Fight Pass. I think they do a 14-day free trial or a week free trial. But you sign up. There's so much tremendous content on there, and it's so much fun. And fights like the LFA are on there. Basically, I think he does 20 or 30 shows a year, so there's constantly fights. CFFC is a tremendous fight organization out of Jersey that puts on really, really good fights. They're well worth watching. I watch them all the time. There's literally fights from all around the country that are live, and it's a great platform. It's I don't pay for Netflix. I use my brother's, but if I was gonna suggest anything, I would suggest Fight Pass because I wind up spending more time watching that than anything.
Same. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, between ESPN Plus and because what they give you for obviously rewatching all of the Ultimate Fighter stuff and then Fight Pass, that's where my money's going. Yeah. So it's been a pleasure to have you guys in today, and obviously we'll be talking a little more in the near future. Obviously, we'll be at the event. Fresh Pulls is gonna show up there and obviously have some fun covering the event. And it's been a real pleasure, guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. This has been fun.
We're looking forward to the 17th.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
You didn't say anything.
I know.
What happened?
No, he handles the.
I thought I was waiting for you to jump in.
IT portion, or if he found
It's gonna be super.